got a total of 5 questions. One is from a gentleman called Prince Samson. He says, is Showore's style of revolution ideal, or do Nigerians need a more organized approach in taking back their country? First thing first, let me say this. If you ask if Showore's style is ideal, question to ask is, has any other person come out with any organized plan for a revolution? Fact of the matter is there's nothing with which to compare. He's been consistent in calling for one. Whether a better job could have been done in articulating one, that's up to posterity to judge. But the fact of the matter is that you cannot fault the man for his recognition of the fact that the Nigerian system is beyond redemption. The critical disconnect is in an inability to communicate these effectively to the Nigerian people. And you really can't blame that on the man, because if he wasn't communicating that, people like myself and multiple others have been communicating it. The question is, have the people been hearing? Have they even listened? Are they receptive to the idea that it's not their ethnic champion or their co-religion that is going to solve the problem? We all will prefer that a Voltron shows up, who waves a wand, and everything just gets better. But it's not going to happen. It will only happen when we all, as a collective, buys into the idea of change and then invest our energy in pursuing that change. So it's not about Showore's tactics. It's about us as a collective. We really need to look at ourselves and then ask ourselves some very hard questions. The second question comes from a gentleman called Afiz Balogun. No, Afiz Olanrewaju, I should say. He says, does Nigeria have the willingness to make a strong stance against the US, UK, knowing both countries? Well, question, really, it is almost impossible for a Nigerian government that is not connected to the people to resist the instructions and interests of whether the British, whether the Americans, or even the Chinese for that matter. If the interest of the Nigerian is not the paramount driving force behind the governance exertions, what you find today is what you will continue to find. It's not just the fact that this neocolonialism is real. It is the fact that even those who we call leaders in Nigeria today are actually agents of imperialist powers. Imperialist powers in Nigeria are diverse. It's not just the West. Even the East, figuratively, I'm talking China, I'm talking India, have become imperial powers in Nigeria because their interests are actively pursued, and the Nigerian interest is almost always subjugated beneath foreign interest by those who purport to rule the Nigerians. So it's not about the exertion of powers by these foreign bodies. It is the willingness of those who presume to rule Nigeria to submit the sovereignty of Nigeria and subsume it beneath foreign interest. So I don't blame. Yorubas have this foreign proverb. They say, it is not their fault. It is the failure of governance that has led us to the point where we have become as prey to everybody. The third question is from Nnamdi Onyejekwe. He says he's of the opinion that it is time to start acting like revolution has started. When do we start sit-ins, slow driving on roads like the Belgian farmers and boycotts? Mr. Onyejekwe, I am in complete agreement with you that we've gone past the point where we should begin to take affirmative actions towards a revolutionary path. I agree completely. And it is actually part of that led me to, during the course of this past week, I was responding to some tweet about a national swearing-in day for the crook at INEC. And for those of you who were busy voting, or what did you call that nonsense that you all went to do yesterday, you are wasting your time. You can't vote your way out of this mess. I was front and center in asking all of you to go register to vote because we believed in the illusion that we might find an electoral path to a revolution. But unfortunately, Nigeria is not amenable to such niceties. And brutally, we were awakened. So if we've been told in very clear terms that our votes do not count, that there is no justice to be found in our court, where does anybody expect us to find the enthusiasm to jump on an electoral cycle that we know that between Yakubu and the career criminal in Aso Rock and all the other monkeys occupying Nigeria, they've already written the results. So what's the point? So insofar as it relates to beginning to take affirmative actions, I am in 110% support of it. It is a function of making it systematic, also ensuring that we first of all close our own ranks. It does not stand to reason that we all want the same thing or profess to want the same thing, but we're coming from different angles and singing from different hymn sheets. All progressive forces in Nigeria would have to, at some point, understand that the divisions in our ranks strengthens our common enemy. And we would all have to get to the point where we understand sitting down waiting for an election cycle in 2027 with a Yakubu at INEC without in fact, I'm not even sure that the path to an electoral revolution is going to be made any easier. How? Are they going, even with all the amendments you might care to introduce to the Electoral Act that we thought was already revolutionary in its intent, nothing is going to change. So I know that over the coming weeks and months, even as the hardship begins to bite deeper and deeper, we would all have to come to the recognition of that solitary fact. We are the victims, and we victimize ourselves further by our divisions and inability to chart a course. The fourth question is from Ajayi Muiwa. He was asking, there is an error here, Muiwa. You were referring to the 1966 Constitution. There is no 1966 Constitution. You have the 1963 Republican Constitution, which replaced the 1960 Independence Constitution. So, having explained that, let me read your question so that others would understand. You asked, why didn't the Constitution hold, and why were we not able to make it work? If we're going to revert to that Constitution, how can we do that? And how does it address the issue that needs to be solved? First things first, the difference between a revolution and chaos is the presence of a plan for the day after. Those of us who have believed that the 1999 Constitution is a fraud and should be done away with, and that we should revert to a regional system, a parliamentary system, that's been the last negotiated agreement of the Nigerian peoples amongst themselves. We say these in the clear understanding that there cannot be a vacuum. You cannot, what we have today, the maelstrom you see all over Nigeria, is based on the fact that the existing constitutional order has been destroyed. Validating that fraud of February 25 last year by the Supreme Court effectively destroyed the fraudulent legal foundation by which this country had been governed for a while. So, in demanding that the 1963 Constitution be revived, which this is a call that has been made by multiple persons, including myself, although I added a qualifier that we should recognize the 6 regions instead of the old 4. But to answer the meat of the question, it couldn't hold because men did not allow it to hold. If, when the disagreements that arose out of the 1962 elections, if those had been settled using legal means or going through the legal process, as imperfect as it might have seemed at the time, of course the system would have held. But young men, military men in their 20s, enraged and dissatisfied with the state of Nigeria at the time, they took matters into their own hands. And that is why we are where we are today. There is a last question that I have to take. It's from Adewale Adekola. He said, okay, so he was quoting me. I had an interview with Arise where I said, line 20 Dele Farotimi up, multiply their brain power by 10 and force them to operate the 1999 Constitution. They will fail spectacularly. So he then asked the question, why did you join the Obidient movement, bearing in mind the comment above? The question you have asked is a fair one to ask. But again, what would you have counseled? Inaction? I joined the Obidient movement and I was very clear in joining that I joined in order to seek a change. I sat down with the principal, Peter Obi, variously before the election. And I know as a fact that the centerpiece of his argument about changing Nigeria, moving Nigeria from consumption to production, cannot be achieved without a fundamental restructuring of the Nigerian state. He shared aspects of his restructuring plans with me and several others, including Afenifere, to which I belong, and including the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum. He shared his restructuring plans with us extensively in private discussions. So we were already aware that we were supporting a candidate who is interested in doing what we expect for Nigeria. That was the basis of my joining the Obidient movement. I'm not a member of the Labour Party. I do not belong to any political party beyond Afenifere, which is in truth the Yoruba name for the action group. When that body gets back together and float a political party, then I will stand up proudly in the midst of each and every one of you and declare to you that I have joined politics. As of today, I am a member of the Obidient movement because of the fundamental idea and ideals. Fundamentally, I recognize that there are no saints. Nobody is going to come from Togo to save us. We're the ones who are going to have to save ourselves. Peter Obi is merely a totem, a figurehead behind which all of us who desires change coalesce. It's not about a political party. It's about a movement to change Nigeria, make it equitable for each and every one of us. It's not about persons. Retrace of our steps. It is very unlikely that those who are ruining Nigeria are going to do anything to change our situation. It will be entirely up to us to find common purpose, repair the breaches, and then pursue the desired change. The rulers or ruiners of Nigeria will not change Nigeria. It is not in their interest to change Nigeria. They desire no changes. A lot of them do not particularly love their appointment in Ubu, but they banded around him because they know that it is in installing him that they can preserve themselves. If you ever doubted that, take a look at what happened during the gubernatorial election and then check out what happened at the Supreme Court. Why do you think they were all busy thanking Jaguda for their retention in office? They understand the fact that a detente had been reached. Parties have agreed that, okay, let's maintain status quo, keep what you have, and everything is hunky-dory. The war amongst them have ended. You know that plea where I told you, do not die in their war? That war is done. They are done fighting. They have clear understandings. They know who is to do what. When you hear them quarreling or squabbling, it might be because they didn't share it right. That was what happened to Beta. Beta misyanked. She stepped out of line and they smacked her back into line. She hasn't done anything that all the ones in there are not doing. I'm saying this to you so that you understand clearly that there is no coincidence of interest between you and the rulers. The coincidences of interest are amongst the victims. And if the victims do not find ways to recognize this very quickly, they continue to leave themselves victimized. So I'm saying to you, Yorubas need to ronu, and those of you who are busy taking the mickey from the monkeys who are busy using Yoruba ronu as a slogan to support Jaguda. Yeah, go ahead, read them, make fun of them if you must, but remember this. without finding common purpose, even with those idiots, we're all going nowhere. Elections are over, but the consequences are with us. As much as we might dislike what they did during the elections, and I'm talking about fellow victims, it is time to find the grace, help them to see the commonalities of these afflictions, because more are coming. Petrol prices are going to go further up. I assure you they will remove. Change you heard the thing that your power and steel power minister of power was saying, Dele, is already canvassing that they should remove every last vestige of subsidy. They talk about government subsidies, but they will never talk about the subsidies that are given by me and you. Every day we subsidize government inefficiency, corruption, and impunity. Every day. Every day that I spend money buying diesel, every day that I spend money paying Megad, every day that I spend hours in traffic, each and every day that I go to the hospital and I spend extraordinary amount of money to treat either myself or any member of my family or staff, I am subsidizing government inefficiency. The thing you need to understand is that if we do not find common purposes, we will perish together. Let me make something clear to you. The ruiners of Nigeria are so myopic that they cannot even see what is in their own best interest. Even their own selfish interest, they can't see it. They are constantly focused on eating, just stuffing their guts, stealing what they cannot spend in God knows how many lifetimes. That is their way. But those of you who still have the capacity to introspect, you can think. You need to now begin to think beyond the now, because I'll show you. I got a few gray hairs in my head now. Maybe in a few years, if I live that long, I'll have a full head of white. But I can still remember the time when I was a wee little boy running around the streets of Ibadan, Fiditi, Ife, well, the places where I grew up. But today, I'm an old man. Even when I forget it, a lot of you remind me. And it is the same for each and every one of you. Time is going. No matter what you've built, no matter how much you've stolen, no matter how many compromises you make or are making or you've made, a day will come. Oh yeah, a day will come. A day will surely come. Will be no more. But the consequences of the choices we made, the compromises that we encouraged, those consequences will live beyond our own time. Our children will get out of it. Each and every one of those who are planting today, who are thinking that everything, look, they will reap what you have sown. Think very carefully. It's not just the Yorubas that need to ronu. And the Yorubas particularly need to ronu because we are the ones whose phrase has been misappropriated. If it's going to be of any use to you or any help, let me tell you, ronu does not mean bonu. Ronu and bonu might sound alike, but the person who is capable of introspection does not end up stupid. What they are demanding of us is that we should become stupid. The purpose of weaponized ignorance is the stupefaction of the victims. When they ask you to ronu, they are not actually asking you to think. They are asking you to react viscerally and to respond in the programmed manner. Ask no question, just support unquestioningly. That is the thing they are saying when they say ronu. But ronu, which is to be stupid, should not be confused with ronu, which is a call to think. Use your brain, your God-given brain. Ask yourself, how is it in my enlightened selfish interest to support this man or that man or this system? How? My dear Nigerians, my brother Yoruba, Igbo, Ibiobio, Fulani, Hausa, whatever you might be and wherever you are, you need to move beyond the slogans. Think. Allow your brain to be your guide. Use your brain. Don't let them be using your head to carry pom up and down the place. Use your brain. This morning is essentially a demand that you use your God-given brain. Any religion or person that is demanding that you should put aside your brain and be responding emotionally is your enemy. Use your brain. How does making enemy of A or B or C, how does it advance your own cause? What does it do for you? Exactly what has A or B done to you to deserve your enmity? These are the things that you need to be looking at. Because I'm seeing your comments, I can't help but see the secessionists as well. And let me be clear, and I'll say this without meaning any offense. If I'm asking you to come together, it's not me saying that you should give up your right to self-determination. But it's actually easier to break this country if you truly desire to break it. If you first of all unite the people for change. If you had change, you can then begin to demand to assert your right to self-determination. That's what you find in Scotland. Today, because they have the right to self-determination, in every election cycle, the Scottish National Party continues to demand a referendum, even though they've had one that failed a few years ago. It is the right to self-determination that is taken to the point of making those demands. The system actually prefers that you focus on breaking Nigeria instead of focusing on changing it. Change it first, and then if you desire to leave, leave. It is a right to self-determination. The right to secession is a right of self-determination. The right of self-determination is the right of citizens. You are not citizens the way things are. None of us are. We are all victims. So if you focus solely on what they will prefer, they actually love it when you begin to talk about secession. They love it. The system loves it. Each and every one of those who should be at the forefront of championing the secessionist rights of citizens are busy at defeating trough. So I'm asking all of us, we have a common interest in surviving as a people, not necessarily as a country. Nigeria is functionally dead. Its economy is almost comatose by design. Poverty is the only thing assured by design. If anything is going to change, it would only change because we found the common purpose to come together to change it. I would say, in closing, this country